This is a Renew original recording. Hello and welcome to Believe in People, a two-time Radio Academy Award nominated and British Podcast Award-winning series about all things addiction, recovery and stigma. My name is Matthew Butler and I'm your host, or as I like to say, your facilitator. Today on Believe in People, we're diving into ketamine harm reduction, rising water bills, youth drug use and the sewage systems failing our communities, with none other than Emma Hardy MP, back for her second appearance. From mental health backlogs to climate resilience, Emma speaks with urgency and honesty about real issues affecting people across the UK, especially in Hull, her own constituency, which is one of the country's most flood-prone cities. She shares powerful reflections on teaching during the 2007 floods, why public trust matters, and how broken systems from housing to healthcare need to change. This is a conversation about what's not working, what gives hope, and what it really means to rebuild trust from the ground up. With stories of inequality, infrastructure, free school meals, poo-powered planes and more. We begin today's conversation by talking about Emma's current role in government.
So officially, I'm the Minister for Water and Flooding. So that's my new title.
So yeah, see that's good because I just think for looking after all things flooding, water, quality and clean air. Yeah. Is that right?
Well, I kind of describe it. Probably shouldn't describe it this way. As everything wet.
Everything, yeah, just everything wet. Everything wet comes under your responsibilities.
It's probably me because I do oceans as well. So yeah,
So what was the first things that you were, or that you have focused on within this role?
The number one issue, because the number one issue of the general public is sewage going into the rivers, lakes and seas. So that's been the thing that people have got the most angry about over the last few years. So that's been kind of the number one focus of what can we do to reduce that, what needs to happen with the water companies, what needs to happen with enforcement. So we were looking at tackling it from different ways, getting the money in to literally rebuild it, to rebuild the pipes, upgrade the sewage treatment works, but also enforcement as well, to making sure that if things aren't done properly by water companies, there's a consequence for it. Because it was felt for a long time that the system was unfair, that people were getting away with things that they shouldn't be. So they're the kind of things that we've been focusing on. And then being Hull, being here, flooding is the other big issue.
Of course.
Because that's a huge issue for our community. We're the second most flood-prone city in the whole of the country. We're at risk of flooding from... Sorry to give you an order.
Just having a panic attack now, just thinking about it, going, oh God.
sorry, don't stress everyone out listening. But we're at risk of flooding. We've got the sea, we've got the river, and we've got surface water. So we've got all different three types of flooding here in the city. So it's a big priority. And then there's some of the other things I do that are really interesting. So I do international oceans. So we're looking at the International Plastics Treaty to try and reduce the amount of plastic going into the ocean, and then stuff on pesticides and chemicals. But the majority of my time, I would say, is number one spent on water quality. Have we got enough water? Is water quality high enough? Those are the issues, and what we're doing about flooding.
Yeah. I mean, you've spoken recently about the need to make things more transparent. You mentioned the sewage then. Why do you think honesty matters when we do talk about the environment with people?
I think you kind of have to be. I think there's a problem at the moment with trust in politics. There is none.
No.
And I think officially it's at the lowest rate I think it's ever been. But there's general, I say, not just politics. I think institutions, authorities, anything like that, there's a whole lack of trust in it. So I think the more transparent and open you are with people helps to rebuild that trust. So I give you an example on water. So one of the things we've said is that we want to put water monitors on as much as possible on the system, and that information will be uploaded so people can log on and see it for themselves. So they might not trust me saying it's improved or whatever, but they can literally go on, have a look, see them on themselves, have a look. And I think trying to be as transparent as possible and just being as honest with people. So, people saying levels of pollution unacceptable, which of course they are, but being honest to them about, okay, how long is it going to take to fix it? What needs to be done to fix it? So in some areas of the country, it's upgrading that sewage treatment works. In other areas of the country, it's introducing a separate power source for that treatment works. Whatever the answer is, but just telling people. Yeah. I find people are reasonable if you explain and you tell them. The problem we've got is because everything's through social media or sound bites or clips, having that time to sort of explain something to somebody isn't always available. Yeah,
and I think people really do take that really short snippet of information and then make an entire judgment based on, like you said, with social media, a 30-second reel or something. And I'm not saying everybody needs to do research to the far end of everything, but people are making decisions based on very small amounts of information, and I think transparency, as you said, is probably key. I think for me as well, like I never mind being told no, but I like an explanation as to why that no is, and that's been me since I was a child. I think, I never cared if can I have that no, but if there's a reason for I think it's one of my biggest gripes is just no. Well, why? Just because. And I think this is what, when you're saying there about that transparency and that information being available to people, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's caused some concern is the Environment Agency, we recently produced something called NAFA2, and you're going to ask me what NAFA2 stands for, and I can never remember what NAFA2
I wasn't actually going to put you on the spot, but yeah.
NAFA2 stands for. But it's basically assessing flood risk in the country. And so now you can put your postcode in and it can tell you what's your level of flood risk in your individual street. I
feel the anxiety just building up again, like, no!
Sorry. But I think having that transparency is really important. So if people know and understand, so there was some misreporting of, the flood risk has really increased. It's like, well, the flood risk hasn't increased. The flood risk was always there, but now you know about it.
Okay, yeah.
So it's being honest with people and having that transparency about what the risks are, where they are, and what kind of risks that you have. And I think, as you say, that give people more information. Now, I have a small bugbear about when I did an interview recently, and I won't mention who recorded it or who put it out there and did it, but I did about a 10-minute interview on drought and what we can do to prevent drought, and all, talking about reducing leakage from pipes, water companies reducing leakage, building more reservoirs, all of this stuff I went through. And I also said in that interview, we could have shorter showers. And the only thing that was reported from that entire interview was Emma Hardy says have shorter showers. Yeah. And I was so annoyed.
This is it though. It's trying to. I suppose I saw something before, and it's around information. And it's like people don't necessarily want to be right anymore. They just want to be first. So with that saying in mind, I think everything that you said there being really valid. But what is it that gets the attention? And it's that very small part, and then the rest of it is void. And again, my annoyance of social media is when people will comment based on the title of something, but when you actually click on the link and you read through it thoroughly, you got like all the comments are invalid because you've just taken, again, that short snippet of information as opposed to the whole piece that's actually, and it's available to you. It's just you've chose ignorance. You chose not to click on the link, so you've probably read that title, haven't read anything else that's been said, and just that very small part of information there.
It's difficult. There's a lot. I feel like there's lots of tension at the moment in society, and as I say, biggest mistrust, not just mistrust of politicians, but mistrust of the justice system, mistrust with the police. There's a whole feeling of people mistrusting, I feel, institutions you might have had more faith in. I don't know how we get that back, but I think it has to be partly through openness, trying to be transparent, trying to give people an honest answer. And if you can't explain something, being able to say, I'm really sorry, I can't explain that at the moment. But trying to be as open with people as possible, and then I hope then you rebuild that trust, because I think that's where we need to be. Yeah,
it's so hard, as I was just saying, with the dissemination of media though, and the way it is. Like, it is people just taking small amounts of information, and then people are putting the trust in those people that are reporting. And I don't think journalists realise what a big responsibility they have. Do you know what I mean? I think it's probably one of the jobs that come with more responsibility than people will ever think or give it credit for. But it's not. I know what I'm trying to say. I just don't think they with as the Spider-Man film once said, with great power comes great responsibility. And it kind of is that. I think if the people in the media do have a great power, and I don't think they use that responsibility wisely. But going back to obviously the local situations, talking about flooding and flood risks. We have a long memory, I suppose, here in Hull when it comes to flooding. And I suppose, how has that shaped the work? How has that shaped the way you think about community protection, especially with our coast, as you said, being under pressure? because I remember those 2007 floods.
Yeah, I remember.
I was on Long Hill and there was a guy going down the street in like a little canoe and someone not long behind him in a rubber dinghy. And I was just like, what is going on? Because I'd never experienced obviously a flood before. And it's interesting you say about Hull being the second
most flood-prone city.
You know, other than that 2007 stint, you know, we haven't experienced it. I felt like Cumbria was getting it every couple of months at one point. It seemed to always be on the news. So yeah, so I suppose how has that shaped the way that you think then?
Well, I mean, now, you know, I think a lot of people remember that quite vividly. So I was teaching at the time, teaching in Willoughby Primary, and the water came into the classroom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I was teaching 6 and 7 year olds. I used to teach infants and them saying like, Mrs. Hardy, there's water in the classroom. And being like, oh, yes, there is. Let's not worry. Let's just move into the... And we had to all move into the hall and call the parents. The parents come and collect the children, and then we set off to go home as the school just filled up with water. And we couldn't drive home, so I walked from Willoughby to Hessel back waded through the water to get back to my house. And I was really lucky because mine's just slightly on that slope that we escaped it, but the other end of the street didn't. Yeah. So we just missed out on home. But for the school, it was out for months. But so. It was something I've always been really interested in. I mean, climate change is real. And it's amazing, isn't it, that we have to restate the fact that climate change is real.
Yeah.
Climate change is real, everyone. And we are going to see more flood events. I mean, we're seeing wetter winters. We're seeing drier summers. You know, we're seeing our climate changing. And I think it's how do we prepare for that change. And there's been a lot since 2007, to be fair. We've got lots more flood defences and we see them working, the tidal barrier, but also the big lagoons out by Willoughby and around the city. So we've had a lot done, but I think it's also about us thinking about being prepared for it and what we can do as individuals. And I find one of the things I find really sad is I go out and I talk to people who've been flooded, unfortunately, because it happens regularly, and where the water's just gone into their property, and people understanding, okay, you can't do much about it if you're a metre under or 3 feet and there's nothing you can do. But there are things you can do if you're just on the edge of it, you know, to try and protect your property and making that greater awareness of things that, because there's so much we can do in terms of big schemes, as I say, the tidal barrier and lagoons and things like that. But there's also like, do you have a plan? Do you know where your medication is in the event of a flood? Do you know who's vulnerable on your street? You know, and it sounds really depressing to be thinking about being prepared for an emergency, but kind of like, do you remember at school, did you ever do your fire plan?
Yes.
Yeah. I think I want to try and get out to people that you need a flood plan as well.
Yeah.
So you know what to do in the event of a fire. Do you know what to do in the event of a flood? But it's a difficult message because people don't want to be worried.
Well, this is it. I think, you know, again, I'm probably very much guilty of this, but you talk about being the second highest risk. The ignorance that I like to kind of live in, with, you know, just for the sake of my mental health, really. Yeah. I think because I live not too far from Holderness Drain, and there's times when I walk my dog and the water's looking a bit high, and I'm looking going, God, if that come up, do you know? But I mean, I said this at the conversation with my dad. I said, look, I've lived in Hull for as long as I can remember. He said, I don't even think when we had the 2007 floods that necessarily, you know, came over. I can't remember if it did happen or not. But he was like, you're fine, don't worry about it. But even like home insurance and things like that, you know, obviously you've got to pay a premium because you live in X amount of meters of a body of water and things like that. So yeah, I suppose for me there is this, when we're getting a lot of rain or when I do see that water coming up, there is the anxiety thinking, oh God, because again, it's I remember in 2007 the displacement and people was living in caravans in like on the front gardens and things like that. It was just I think that's what kind of fills me with anxiety, especially having a child as well now, you know, and a family. Back in 2007 I was 16, you know, I only had myself to really look out for, whereas there now having responsibility for other people and even what you just said then was interesting, because even if you don't have responsibility for people directly, as you just said, what about like elderly neighbours and people that you would maybe need to step in and try and care for as well. So it's an interesting way of looking at it. You recently visited a new reservoir that's also open to the public, and it's not just pipes and pumps, it's a shared space. So do you think people do feel more connected to climate solutions when they are a part of them as well? You talked about transparency.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you can make beautiful blue-green spaces. And, people feel better when they're amongst nature, but people feel better when they're amongst, water environments as well. It's so good for your mental health. So yes, we want to build reservoirs because we want to make sure we're collecting the water when it rains, so we've got it when it's dry. It's that simple. But also, these can be beautiful spaces for people to go and walk their dogs and enjoy. Obviously, safely. I should stress reservoirs safely, and of course. But these can be really good community spaces too. And in Hull, we've started to see some of our blue-green infrastructure, some of our aqua greens popping up around, and these can be really nice spaces for nature, because I'm really keen on, sometimes you've got to build a big concrete wall, like you've just got to, but actually for a lot of surface water flooding, you can have something more beautiful, like more of a wetland area with planting and nature and things like that. That's a nice space. There's a lovely one out by, now I'm going to get the wrong place. Is it up by Orchard Park or is it Bransholme?
Bransholme, I know what you mean. Yeah, I was there not so long ago, actually.
Yeah. And that just looks like lovely fields that you can go all walking, but actually that's been designed to be an area that can flood.
I had no idea it was there, to be fair. I somehow stumbled across it and I was having a walk. I was like, I've lived here for all my life now. I had no idea that this place was here.
And that's a gorgeous example of something that protects the area, protects all the houses, but it's most of the time just looks like a lovely space to go and have a wander and walk your dog.
Yeah, I put something on Instagram and a mate messaged me going, "Where's that? That looks lovely." I replied, "Bransholme." He was like, "What?" I was like, "It is. It's really nice
lovely
around here." So
yeah.
Obviously, we're an addiction recovery and podcast that tries to challenge stigma. So looking towards drug use, changing drug use, in particular ketamine, because we have seen ketamine harm rising fast, especially among young people. As an MP, is this something that is on your radar at all?
It's been raised with me by young people. I haven't had it raised through official channels, but it's been raised with by young people. In fact, my daughter mentioned to me about a festival she went to and seeing a number of people who seem to be under the influence, and it's becoming more common. So it's more something that I've heard young people talking about than I've had conversations with through official channels. And I think what's really concerning me is I don't think there's enough understanding out there about how much damage this actually does. Because when you're young, you think you're going to live forever and be healthy forever. Of course you do. Yeah. And any young person's assessment of risk is not.
Started looking at my own life, it's diabolical what I didn't consider to be a risk. But
I know. Well, I mean, even, down, it sounds as daft as, when you're younger, when you'll go on all the awful rides at Hull Fair.
And now you're like... I go to Hull Fair and I think, I don't trust that. How can I trust a ride that's been put up in less than 24 hours?
And I'm exactly the same when I'm just walking around going, oh no, I'll just get my chips from Bob Gardens.
That's what I'm like now.
Soak up the atmosphere, go on nothing. But, so this risk assessment, I don't think's there. And I worry a bit that, it's just been upgraded, hasn't it, from a Class C to a Class B. But I'm a bit worried that we're a bit behind the curve and that young people are starting to use this more, and there's not enough information out there to explain that this is really quite damaging and this can seriously damage you long term. And I'm not sure there's enough awareness is my feeling.
Yeah. I think the scary thing is, as it's been pointed out to me, many times now, is the irreversible damage that it can do. And there's people, in their early 20s with stoma bags attached to themselves. And this is based on, ketamine use that has absolutely just rotted away their insides. And that isn't something that, there's a fix for that. It's that's you now for the rest of your life. You have that. And I think that's the scary thing, is how quickly it's damaging people. Because, we're a service that, whilst we look at all substances, I always say there is an emphasis on opiate and crack use. And with that, one of the risks that associated with hepatitis C, bloodborne viruses.
Yeah.
But some of those bloodborne viruses aren't things that are going to damage that individual until maybe 20, 30 years down the line. It's, very slow acting killer. Whereas with ketamine, it's the damage is there and it's almost instant as well. And I think that's the thing that we do find scary. But I suppose the thing with the substance in particular, it's not just about the addiction to the substance, but looking at young people that are using it. And I know you, when you said you was a teacher, you was very much with young
Little
people.
ones,
but
yeah.
what was your previous job title in government? Was it shadow minister?
Yeah, so I was shadow minister for flooding, and then before that, shadow minister for universities.
Okay, so maybe some experience with that particular group as well. But that youth mental health, school pressure, education pressure, and the long waiting lists that are there for help. Do you think right now that systems are set up to deal with the bigger picture of ketamine use and the damage that it is causing?
My instinct is that there isn't enough awareness of how serious it is and the damage it can do. And I feel like, and I probably as guilty of this as anyone. You're not. I mean, it's only that I've got a teenage daughter who's really
That's why you knowledge of it.
Saying something to me about it. Otherwise, I'd probably have no knowledge or very little knowledge of it being a growing problem. And I think there is that difficulty of making sure that, I suppose, schools, colleges and people who have direct contact with young people have enough knowledge and information to share, to share that out and let people know the damage that's happening. And I don't know if that's something, I don't know, whether when you do that work with the colleges.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny enough, it's things that it's been pointing out to us. We've got a pathway now, we call it our non-OCU, which is the non-opiate and crack use, and that's for people who are struggling with cocaine addiction, maybe, problems with cannabis. Ketamine, again, I think it goes to the I say arrogance, I don't mean it in such a negative way, but the arrogance of young people, or the arrogance of youth, as we've just said, that lack of risk. I don't think enough people are necessarily engaging with it or engaging with the support, and I don't think they will until it's too late, and that's the reality of it. But as we've said, we're seeing young people having these medical treatments for something that realistically, could have been prevented. And I suppose, like always, it's exploring the why behind that, what's going on for them in their life where they are turning to ketamine. But I think it is quite normal for young people to dabble in substance misuse. You said about your daughter at the festival.
Not that she was dabbling.
No, I'm not saying she was dabbling, but your daughter at the festival where seeing
people,
people are dabbling, of course. A lot of them probably don't have childhood traumas, or it's just that experimentational, recreational phase of their life that's using substances. But again, it's why we're probably not necessarily getting them through the door is because of that and that reason, I suppose, really. So, I guess it's looking at, are we adapting fast enough, and or do you think we're still playing catch up really with it?
I think we could do more to be more up to date with what's happening, and I tend to rely on you guys. Or the hospital or the police have been people that sort of generally tell me about this is a problem we've got. So when we had an issue with, I think there was some illegal sales of some particular bad batch of heroin, was it? In October last year we had a lot, that was having seen. So I tend to rely on people sort of letting me know, and then it's how do you share that information out. But I think you're right. I think there could be more of a systematic way of doing it, so that we can make sure, because I'm sure if some of the people using ketamine recreationally, if you said actually you could end up with a stoma bag, that would probably put them off taking it, but people need to be aware of the risks, and I'm not sure they are yet. I completely agree with that. It is about getting in those space, and obviously with us as this drug and alcohol treatment service, we primarily work with people that are over 18, so we are making improvements in our 18 to 25 year old pathway, and of course the pathways between Refresh, which is the local young people service. But again, it's almost like you feel like you're racing against the clock a little bit, because you just don't have the time really to try and get this under control. And that's the thing. I think that's exactly it as well. I mean, everybody's doing, the colleges are doing their day job. You guys are doing your work with addicts. Everyone's. It's difficult, isn't it, to make it a priority. But I think my feeling is if I went back and said to my daughter, do you know that people who use ketamine could end up with, she'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I bet there isn't that knowledge.
I think there's a campaign that someone mentioned recently called A Bag for Life, which I really liked the title of, because we all know what a bag for life means, but it's a play on that, and I suppose it is sharing those stories. But again, I mean, this is a campaign I've mentioned twice already, and I don't think I've ever, without going and looking for it, I don't think I've ever seen it pop up anywhere. So
I've never seen that.
More awareness could be made around it, because again, I think just the title of it, I think it sounds like a great campaign. How it looks in practice, I suppose, is another thing. I suppose we obviously for us on this series, we talk a lot about stigma. I guess in your view, how do we move the conversation forward so it's less about punishment and it's more about support and healing? Because I do think, I mean, you mentioned about it moving from a Class C to a Class B drug. For me, all that says is well, if you're found in possession of it, you get a harsher sentence. I don't think that's necessarily going to do anything in some way.
Right.
I get there's more to it than that, of course, but I suppose how do we move it from that to?
Yeah, it isn't. Yeah, because it's interesting perception. Because my perception was it tells you it's more serious.
Yeah. Okay.
So I believe the intention is to say this is more serious, because almost like, it's not a Class C. This is more serious. It's a Class B. But it's interesting how different things can be. I like how we both interpreted
that very differently, though.
Completely.
But it's interesting that though. But go on, continue.
Yeah, no, and I think it's how do we. So I think it's, again, it goes back to almost what we were saying about water, wasn't it? What we said about transparency, honesty, trying to restore trust, trying to get trusted people to give the right information and understanding in the way that we have, that the same things can be interpreted in two different ways. So how do we communicate more effectively, sort of, the reason why things are happening and the reason why things are being done? And I think all of that needs to work, doesn't it? It needs to come together. Yeah. So that it's not just, we want to punish you more, but we want to tell you that this is more serious than when than was first acknowledged.
Yeah, no, I do completely agree with that. I do, again, that really interesting and different takes, and that's probably down to maybe the professions that we're working in as well, and how that looks. But when we last shared on this podcast, I feel like we was at the height of the cost of living crisis. I mean, it was everywhere plastered in the news, wasn't it, I suppose? So looking at the cost of living, mental health and inequality, I suppose something that we're hearing more about is people who have done the work of recovery but then get knocked back by things like housing stress or not having enough to live on. What's your take on how the cost of living crisis is affecting people's mental health?
Oh, it's massive. It's absolutely huge. I mean, there are some areas where I think in the past year we've made a lot of progress. So families, I think, it's improved a lot. So the free breakfast clubs, I think, is helping. But that's we're going to do every single school in the constituency. But at the moment, we've only got it, I think, in 2 in the constituency. Changing the rules around free school meals. So now anyone who gets means-tested benefits can get free school meals for their children. So I think there's quite a bit around children and and there's the child poverty task force I know is going to announce later. So there is some things are starting to come through there, I think, helping children, but that's not painting a massively rosy picture. But I think there's some improvement. Yeah. And I think there's some improvement with, as again, people who are already in the system on means tested benefits and the warm homes grant that people are going to get this winter as well. So there's some improvement around there. But at the same time, everyone's bills are going up. Yeah. So even though we're, putting money into free school meals, supporting more people with free breakfast clubs and the warm home grants, at the same time, bills are continuing to rise. I know, for example, water bills have just risen for people by 30-some percent.
Mine went up this year, and I was thinking, I think going back to what you said about it's quite frustrating, when you talked about the way sewage was being pumped into things, and it's like, well, why am I paying for? Why am I paying more?
Absolutely.
And obviously, it all ties into all of that, doesn't it?
It does, I think it's that feeling that people have at the moment that the system, that they feel it's unfair.
Yeah, that's when you said about the mistrust of it. I think it is when you see, all this sewage has been pumped into, well, my water bill's gone up.
Yeah, and people feel angry about it, and you get it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Completely get it. One thing I would say just on water,
go on. Yeah.
Is if people, if they look at water meters, actually, a lot of people, general rule is if you've got more people living in your house than bedrooms, you're probably better without a meter. If you've got fewer people living in your house than bedrooms, then you're probably going to save money on the water meter. That's my sort of short.
Fair enough. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Short advice, but I mean, it's a real challenge, and I think there's nothing more stressful. And I've before I got this job and I'm a single parent, there's nothing more stressful than worrying about money. Because you end up going to bed worrying about money, waking up worrying about money. And it's incredibly, and then it only takes one thing to go wrong, like one thing to break, and then you're suddenly in a really, bad situation. And people, I think, in the city are struggling. I think they're really struggling. And so we've done some things, but I think we need, there's more that really need to do. Minimum wage increase really helped Hull. So that's really helped Hull, because we had so many people on the minimum wage. But even so, being on the minimum wage isn't great. So I think there's a lot more, a lot more things that we need to be looking at of how we can help people. But I mean, when I talk to a lot of people I speak to, it's, as you say, it's the cost of housing, it's the cost of the utility bills, it's things like that that are really impacting. And I think, so I think things have eased off a little bit, but we're certainly not in.
Do you think as well? Because I mean, we went to London to speak to a podcast participant maybe about a year or so ago, and she couldn't believe the price that we pay for things like housing. And I mean, for what we can get for X amount of money, she said, like, you wouldn't even get like a tiny bed sit in London. So I suppose, when yes, we've got it hard, the cost of living is affecting everybody, but I'm just thinking then about, there must be a north-south divide there, or somewhere with the cost of things down south to what it is up north. Have you experienced that yourself?
Gosh, well, if you go to a pub and pay £9 for a pint, it's just ridiculous. £9 for a pint. I went with my James, who's from East Hull, and he was outraged. He was just disgusted.
I can imagine. I give some money for something last time I was in London, and there I was waiting for my change, and then he was waiting for more money off me. I was like, what is going on down here? Absolutely bizarre.
I mean, you're right. I mean, housing is cheaper here, but then, as I say, we've got more people on minimum wage incomes, and we've got if you look at the annual salary in our area, it's lower so it's all kind of relative. So yes, things might be a bit cheaper, than people don't get paid as much. So there's two ways of sort of looking at it. But I think I mean, prices in London are just, as you say, I don't know how anyone affords to.
No. I was speaking to a homeless guy last time I was in London, and he said, "Oh, can you help me?" He said, "I'm not asking for money, so I just need a few essentials." He said, "I need some toothpaste, a toothbrush." And I thought, based on the job I do, I thought it'd be hypocritical for me to say, no, absolutely not. So I was like, yeah, come in. So we went in the shop and just grabbing a few of these things, that even that came up to, I'm thinking it's going to cost me around 10 quid. I think I ended up spending like 22 quid or something, just on like what I would have considered Basics, the essentials, So even things like that, again, just more money. I'm like, how is this north-south divide so big? Do you know?
No, I think I mean, you are right, and so in that way, it is it is sort of cheaper here, but I still people are I think finding it tough, and we need more social housing. Is what I feel we need, and we're gonna do some. We're gonna put money in, and we're gonna build some, but obviously they're not. That takes a while to do and
to create. Happen overnight, does
exactly.
It? Sort of thing,
And but that is, to me, something we need to be seriously looking at. We haven't got the social housing stock that we used to as a city, because people have bought them and then they haven't been replaced. It's pretty much.
Well, that was
happened.
it. Yeah, because I was in the middle of a debate not so long ago where I think someone I know has been in their house for 20 years and therefore they can buy it from the council, which sounds great. But then the argument there was, well, that's not fair because that's taking a house away from social housing, and therefore, and I was like, I can see both sides of this here. You've lived in the house for 20 years, therefore
you've paid a lot of
money. There should be some incentive to buy it with the discount that they can get and stuff. But the opposite is, well, that house isn't getting replaced, and if it is, it's not immediate, is it? So the social housing
and then now
is a
you
massive
see
issue.
Lots of social housing that's now private rented owned.
Yeah.
So on the same street, you'll walk along and you've got some council ones. And I think you can always tell by the roofs.
Yeah,
This is how
I said this. Yeah, do you know, sometimes when I go in an area, it's like you've had your roof replaced. So, up on East
because the council would knew your roof.
There was I think they'd almost, not like the cladding as such, but the
Yeah,
exterior
right.
of the house. Yeah, some of them didn't have it and then some of them did.
Yeah.
So you can see which, and weirdly enough, the house what was bought now looks worse than the social housing. Sort of
Completely.
thing. So,
because to be fair on the council or any council, they'll invest in their own housing stock, and you can walk along and see which ones have bought and ended up in private landlords because they're not maintained to the same standard. They don't have the new roof, they don't have the external cladding, they're not, so we've tried to sort of address this. So there should be more equality in rented accommodation between private and between social. There needs to be, you should have the same standards but then, I mean, that's something you can do, but ultimately we need to build more council homes, well, more social housing.
of course, yeah. Do you think the benefit system does support people who are in recovery from substance misuse, or does it sometimes make things seem harder?
Lots of people come for help with the benefit system. We tend to sort of, to be honest, put them in touch with citizens' advice who are expert on it, because it's incredibly difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
I think the system's really hard to work out whether you're entitled to this or to that, or I think it's a really difficult. I mean, yes, you get those websites like Turn to Us where you can put details in and sort of, see what you might be entitled to, but I think it's an incredibly complex system. And the people we get coming to us tend to be people trying to navigate it for the first time. So people who, might have lost their job or become too unwell to work or, something like that. And they have no idea, or people who are elderly and have no idea that there is support out there because they've never tried to navigate the system. And I think it is a really complicated. Yeah. I think it's complicated for anybody who's not used to it.
Yeah, and I think if you're someone who, I often find with, especially, when we talk about opiate recovery, it's often, not always by any means, but often an ageing population. People are in their maybe late 40s, early 50s, and they're not great with computers. So when you're trying to navigate, like, you're in recovery now, and I think this is the weird thing. Some people think, right, I'm off the drugs, everything will be perfect now, life will work out for me, everything's good. But then you're met with the realities of all this stuff that you used to just bury your head in the sand with. Now it's all there and it's right in front of your face, and trying to navigate, as you said, a better off system, online. It's like, I don't know how to use computers. So I guess it can be quite difficult for people to navigate. And sometimes when it is too difficult, I think, what do people do? They go back to the old coping mechanisms and therefore go back to using substances, because it was, in a way, I mentioned earlier about the flood risk, the anxiety that I was given.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's
sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's absolutely fine. It's better to kind of live in ignorance of something than to know everything. And I think in some way, when people do achieve recovery, and they are trying to really navigate the benefit system, or if they've got debts, council taxes, it does end up just becoming so overwhelming that it is a case of burying their heads in the sand a little bit and going back to old habits. But I do think there are things out there.
Yeah, and
services that can support with
absolutely.
that. So yeah,
there are. It's just, if Emily works with me, she always tells me off for saying this because I say it all the time. But you don't know what you don't know.
Yes, you don't know what you don't know. What you don't know. Here's a question: do you find as an MP, people just expect you to? Because I'm doing it now with some questions, expecting you to know everything about everything.
Yeah, and
that must be difficult.
It is, but I think it's better to just be honest and say, well, this is what I know, and there's other things I don't know. And I think, but it's that kind of, you can't be aware of something if you're not aware. So, like, I know because, and I've mentioned on here, that anyone who isn't sure about what benefits they should go get an appointment with the Citizens Advice Bureau and do a benefits check with them. But someone might not even know the Citizens Advice Bureau exists, or that they offer benefit advice. Do you know what I mean? So it's that whole thing of you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And it's quite difficult to get that information about, okay, where can you go for support? Where can you go for help? What is available? Because there are lots of different, there are charities, there are organisations, there's lots of different help out there. But if you don't know they exist,
you're not going to use them, are you?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I get that completely. No, thank you, Emma. Recovery isn't just something, again, that people necessarily do on their own. It happens in, I mean, I always say the opposite of addiction isn't recovery, it's connection. I think recovery happens in families, it happens in friendships, it happens in communities. I suppose looking at you as an individual person, what does recovery mean to you in a bigger social sense?
I think it's that, the famous politician who said there's no such thing as society, or allegedly said that. I think it is about society. And I think lots of and maybe I sound way too liberal and whatever, but I think the more connections we have with each other in a community, the stronger the community, the better the community cohesion, and the more we can support each other. Going back to what I said about, flooding, if we're creating a flood plan, do you know who's vulnerable on your street, who'd need help, that. And we had a sense of that a bit during COVID, I think. There was that sense, wasn't there, of people looking out for each other. People used to check
out for the neighbours and everything back then. I always thought there'd be a big societal shift after COVID, but in a weird way, it felt like we went right back to how we was in 2019 in other ways as well.
But it's that opposite of, I was talking about the online, the real life, communication being done online isn't real life. And so I don't know, I think there's that, how do we build that sense of community again, that sense of shared, and it could be through anything. It could be through sport, it could be through interest, whatever it is, but how do we bring people together? And I think there's a role on all politicians especially, and I won't rant too much about this, to be people who seek unity rather than division, because it's easy to exploit division for political gain. It's easy to whip people up and make people start hating one another, because then you can get your own supporters on side, and you can sort of build that division and build that support base. But I think we have I'd say a moral duty to try and actually bring people together and show people that, actually, like with addiction, there for the grace of God go I. There's many of these situations that we're all however many paychecks away from being homeless. We're all,
I always like that analogy of it. Yeah,
but it's true, and I think so. How do we get as a community to be more understanding of each other and more? I don't know. I haven't got the answer.
No, of course.
How we do it, but I think there's anything we can do to try and build those bridges. I think is better for society, and so I'm very wary of anyone seeking to exploit division, because I think it never ends well.
Obviously, there is a lot of division. There is a lot of negativity, as I think we've spoken about already. But what is something that gives you hope right now, whether that be something in Parliament, in your community, or just in everyday life?
I think generally when things go wrong, and I see this, as I say, I see this sadly with the flooded communities I go and visit, when things do happen, people do pull together. And you do see that people do pull, when we saw it in COVID, people do pull together when things happen, and they do look out for each other. And I think that gives me hope. And I, fundamentally think that, people are angry and they're upset at the moment, and they're cross, and a lot of people feel things aren't working, and they feel difficult with the cost of living. But I think ultimately people care about each other, and I think that gives you hope, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think things are, and I would say this, but I think things are starting to get better. I mean, it might be getting not be getting as better as quickly as people want it to, but things are starting to get better. And I think as that continues and improves, then life becomes a bit easier.
I think that was the pressures you was kind of faced with as a political party. I think people thought you was going to be able to make massive changes overnight, didn't they? So a lot of those, I remember seeing the frustration in people and the headlines. I was like, what are you expecting them to do?
Within a few months. Even down to the sewage, it's like if you want to reduce sewage going into a river, I'm going to bore you slightly now.
No, you've got
to build a storm overflow tank. So you've got to literally go in, stick a tank to hold the sewage away so it doesn't spill out into the river. Like, to go and do that on lots of these storm overflows requires you going in there, digging a hole, putting a tank, so you can't do that in a few weeks. I mean, that's something that you're going to have to do, but you do over a period of time. But that goes back to being honest and being transparent with people about how long it will take to fix some of these things. But I completely understand everyone wants it to change immediately. And people are being sold by some politicians promises of, you can, it can happen. But I think that comes back to that honesty and trust and saying, things are getting better. We're still working on a lot of things. There's a lot more to do. And it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I had to say I remember having a conversation with my dad, and I said, look, things are going to have to get a little bit worse before they get better. We're going to have to experience some temporary discomfort before we can experience long-term comfort. I said, that's just because of the state in which the country is in right now. And I think not a lot of people seem to understand that. I think they think things can happen so quickly.
Some things you can immediately. You can, like we've done, increase the minimum wage. You can do that straight away.
Yeah.
There are things you can do immediately, and some things take a bit longer. But I think there's some, but that's just what's going to happen. But I think it's that we've just got to keep going, keep working really hard. And I think it does give you hope that you think, well, like today, I've had the notification we were 7 million more GP appointments that we've hit as a target in a year. I mean, that's great.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But then I know whenever I put that out, someone goes, I couldn't get one.
Well, I still can't get my appointment. Yeah.
You always guarantee that will be the...
Yeah, that'll be the first thing. That's what I'm going to get as the headline, and then watch the comments come flooding in.
Emma says everyone can get a GP. I can't. Yeah.
No, honestly, I mean, we always see you speak with such compassion and connection. I suppose that my last real question for you really is what helps you stay grounded, especially when politics can get so tense, because again, you're a very lovely person. I think I'd struggle in those confrontational environments. Like how do you keep yourself so grounded in them?
Well, I mean, I think it helps that I'm from here. I got this comment on which did make me laugh. I'd nipped to a deli near where I live because I was out and about with one of the members of staff, and she was like, "Oh, let's go in there. They do really good brownies. Let's go get a brownie." So I was like, "Yeah, okay, we'll go in." And then I saw I know this is really dirty. I'm sorry, but they were amazing. Black pudding, Scotch eggs.
That sounds amazing. I love black pudding and I love Scotch eggs. Yeah,
it was amazing. But I feel filthy eating this. So I was like, right. Brownie, black pudding, Scotch egg, because I'm obviously incredibly sophisticated. And then Mustafa was with me. He was like, "Let's go put your picture of you, and I'm going to put it out saying that you've been there." So I was like, "Oh, okay, fine. Just put this out on social media." And also put out, I had a black pudding Scotch egg. I was like, "Oh, come on, you could have said like something else." And then one of the comments was like, "Stop trying to be normal,
Stop trying to be normal."
And I was like,
God,
this is like, and I mean, we did. I mean, some of them we did laugh at. Some of them were quite funny, but it was that thing of like, it's like, what do you think I do? Yeah. Where do you think? As if it was all staged.
Yeah, okay, that's it. But I suppose I can sometimes see that, because you sometimes do see pictures where you do think that does look staged, but no, the reality is, who wouldn't love a black pudding Scotch egg? Yeah.
Well, it was just as we were walking past, and then they're like, "Oh, lucky if you had a photographer," and I'm like, iPhone.
And a photographer, like he's still in the 90s or something like that.
Yeah, carrying around But so there is still that. Yeah. But it is strange because, I've lived in Hessel for over 20 years now. So then I used to get the all parachuted, like to where? Like I've been here 20 years. So yeah, you do get a bit of that. But I think most people know I'm from around here, and I think that does help a bit. But you just, and I think the other thing is I try and disassociate in my head the people don't know me. Yeah, they're angry with me because either they don't like the Labour Party, or they don't like politicians, or they don't like Labour politicians. Yeah. You could hit them both. Course, but they don't know me. A lot of the abuse, especially abuse that you get from someone you look and you think you're from Bradford, what you're doing on my page.
Exactly. It's nothing even to do with you directly. Yeah.
No, it's
I mean, we spoke about this briefly before, but how much attention do you actually pay to those social media comments? Is it something that really does bother you when you see it, or is it kind of just water for ducks back, part of the job for you?
It's quite sad to say that it does seem to just be part of it now. Yeah. That you just have to accept that's what it's like. And It was my mum. Oh, my mum. She gets really upset with them.
I can imagine, yeah.
She gets really hurt by them. And she was like, I think you should leave social media. I don't think you should. And I said, no, because that's what they want. I said, these people just want to make it so that you'll go. And I'm not going. Yeah. And I said, if you look, and that's one of the things I always look at, is if you look at the number of likes, 50 comments of people ranting and calling you whatever, but you've got 150 people liking it, because most people don't comment.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there's a few things that have been pointed out to me, but my general attitude is if I wouldn't say it to someone in person, I'm not saying it on social media. And I think, you know, you see those comments, how many of them would actually say that to you if they saw you in person? They would. Yeah. Maybe one or two of them out, but out of 50 comments, I don't think you would. Emma, we like to wrap up our podcasts with a series of questions. You might remember them, and your answers might be different. There's no expectation for them to be the same. Right. But what is your favourite word?
Well, this is last time I think I told you it's humongous because of the humongous song.
That's it, yeah. Is it still humongous?
Well, humongous is a great word, isn't it? Don't you think that's it's a fun word?
So to describe something that's tall, was it big? It was humongous. It really paints a picture, doesn't it?
It's such a fun. I think it's like, it just reminds me of it. It's like a childish word, isn't it? Which I think
it was humongous. I don't think I've ever used it as an adult to describe something that was really big.
I need to get humongous into Hansard, don't I? I need to use it in a speech.
Someone asked you to describe Big Ben. It was
humongous. It's a great word. It's fun.
Least favourite word?
Oh, I don't know. What would be my least? No. That would be it. Yeah. Don't like the word no.
Something that excites you?
What kind of a? Oh gosh, what excites me? I can get really geeky.
Be as geeky as you want to be.
I do get quite when. It's going to sound so sad, but I get really interested in engineering things. Okay. And I'm not an engineer by background.
Well, you seem quite knowledgeable when you're talking about all the sewage stuff.
I know, but I get really interested, and then I'll tell my Jones about it, and he was just like, "That's really boring."
Did you know that stuff before the job, or is this stuff that you've learned because of the job?
Yeah, because of the job. So, something that I think is quite exciting. Yeah. Poo-powered planes.
Okay.
So stay with me on this. So this is the fact that, right, you've got water companies now turning human waste from sewage treatment into methane, which can be turned into sustainable aviation fuel. So we are going to be powering planes with our poo. And I think that is really exciting.
That does. I can see how excited you are.
It is. It gets really exciting, and I think that's really fun. Yeah. That you could, because we're going to do 1/3 of sustainable aviation fuel. This is something we're never ever going to run out of.
I get that,
and I think that's quite exciting.
Something that doesn't excite you?
Oh, something that doesn't excite me. I think it's when you have to do lots of reading of very, very long reports, which are very informative, and you have to do it, and it feels a bit like homework.
Yeah, I get that. Sound or noise do you love?
Well, I think I told you I like my cat purring.
That was it. As if you remember, dear.
I remember, because it is one of my favourite sounds. But I think the other one, because I've heard it more recently, and I thought that was really fun, when little kids giggle. Yeah. The giggle of a little child when they're like 2 or 3 and they really giggle, and you can't not... Yeah. It can't not make you happy.
I have it now with my 3-year-old daughter, and I get really... I was walking to work the other day, and I just felt myself getting really sad, thinking, I won't get them giggles for they're not... It's not forever, and it just bothers me. Some of the best things that happen in my life are just not forever.
But it is just that, isn't it? Yeah, it's when they're little and they really giggle.
Especially if it's something just so random that makes them giggle. It's the stupidest thing that makes them giggle. I absolutely love it.
You have to tell about poo-powered planes.
Yeah, I will, yeah. She'll just be like, what? What sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, God, anything like drilling or anything. Oh, dentist drill.
Oh, God, yeah, because it just goes right up there.
Yeah.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Well, I did teaching. I don't know, something else with, something else with young people. I don't know quite what, but maybe something else in that sort of area. Or like retrain as an engineer. No, I couldn't retrain as an engineer. But I do find
the passion's there for it.
But it is like super interesting when you find out about. I'm quite interested in how things work, and it is. I do think that's really fun.
What profession would you not like to do? I
don't know, but probably something. Oh well, Now I've sort of seen the people that go out and dig out the fatbergs
I've heard about the fatberg.
Yeah, the fatbergs in the sewage. That would be a tough job. Walking the sewage pipes of London.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Radio 1 did a show at the Fatberg once, in like a Fatberg in London. After one of the guests had rang in, they took all the equipment and did a radio show at a Fatberg. It was just called the Fatberg, as if there was only one of them in the entire London sewage system.
That's a tough job.
And then lastly, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Well, hopefully welcome.
That'd be a nice start. Yeah.
I'd maybe settle with welcome. And I don't know, I'd like to think that, if nothing else, people think I did my best.
Thank you, Emma, for joining me on Believe in People.
Thanks for having me.
And if you've enjoyed this episode of the Believe in People podcast, we'd love for you to share it with others who might find it meaningful. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode, and leaving a review will help us reach more people and continue challenging stigma around addiction and recovery. For additional resources, insights and updates, explore the links in this episode description. And to learn more about our mission and hear more incredible stories, you can visit us directly at believeinpeoplepodcast.com.